We're getting a new glimpse into efforts to get President Biden reelected and the private concern from Democrats. Some Biden allies telling Time the White House and campaign team tasked with selling his success have fumbled the job. And joining me now is the author of that piece, Time senior correspondent Charlotte Alter. She's also the author of The Ones We've Been Waiting For: How a New Generation of Leaders Will Transform America. Also with me is former governor of Vermont and former DNC chair Howard Dean. Welcome to you both. Good to see you both. So, Charlotte, you say Biden's inner circle is defiantly optimistic, citing the strong economy, cash advantage over Trump, also his strong record. But in this political environment, is that enough?
Well, I think that's the big question. And one of the things that makes many other Democrats we spoke to nervous is that it does seem as if the Biden campaign is planning to run a very similar playbook that they ran in 2020 and a similar playbook that won Democrats a lot of, key victories in the 2022 midterms, focusing on democracy and reproductive rights. And I think the thing that is making some of the president's allies and some other people who don't want to see Trump reelected very nervous is this idea that they're worried that the president's campaign is essentially running the same campaign they ran last time, but it's a very, very different environment. So that's one of the reasons that some people are concerned.
So, Charlotte, Biden does have a lengthy record of success. Let's look at it. I mean, it includes the bipartisan infrastructure bill, historic climate change bill, billions in student debt relief, lowering drug costs, and also gun safety legislation. But he's losing ground with some key demographics. He's leading Trump by only 4 points with young voters. His share of black voters has dropped 24 points, and now he trails Trump among Hispanic voters. Why hasn't he earned their support?
Well, I think this is one of the things that's making a lot of Democrats nervous is, Biden's coalition, the groups that helped him win the presidency in 2020, that coalition seems to be crumbling. And again, Trump doesn't need to outright win young voters or win voters of color. He just needs to run up the margins. And right now, according to this very early polling, he seems to be doing that. And so, one thing that I think a lot of people are waiting to see, and I think the Biden campaign is also waiting to see this, is, there is a little bit of a sense that people are tuned out to politics right now, and that come late summer and fall, people will really start to actually pay attention to this presidential election, which, by the way, is a contest between two familiar entities that have very high negatives with a large portion of the population. So there's a sense that people are kind of tuned out to this election, but that once the fall rolls around, they'll sort of remember what America was like under Trump and hopefully come home to Biden. That's what the Biden campaign hopes.
Along that vein, Howard, Biden has lost support amid Muslim and Arab voters over his support of Israel. Will these voters come around? And if they don't, could it cost Biden swing states like Michigan?
It certainly would cost Biden Michigan, but I think they will come around. I mean, this president has already moved the United States into a position which is much, much different than any previous president of either party. Now, he gets a big assist from Netanyahu, who is probably the most inept prime minister in the history of Israel. He's sort of Trump with brains. All he cares about is himself. But I do think Biden is moving. We've not seen the U.S. put forward a resolution of the kind they put forward the other day, and we embarrassed the Russians and the Chinese into vetoing it because it was so good for the Palestinians. Basically, it said that we need a Palestinian state, and we should have a ceasefire, and it should be now. That's never happened before. And so I do think that Muslim Americans will come back, especially given the alternatives when you have an out-and-out racist who tried to ban Muslims from coming into the United States as his first act of his presidency.
Can I ask you quickly, how much do people go to the polls and say, well, we're not going to vote for the president, but we'll vote for everything else? How much does that happen, Howard?
Well, this is an unusual election. You have one of the people who is a real danger to the United States and democracy, which is Trump. And then you have a guy who I don't fully understand why he gets such negatives. But my problem probably is that I'm 75 years old and he's not that much older than I am. But I don't get why anybody would consider voting for Trump if you're a student or if you're African American or if you're Latino, considering all the things he's had to say about Latinos, or if you're young. This is an election between two people, essentially, and a crackpot, if you want to include Bobby Kennedy. And there's one of them that's much better and it has a fantastic record. Look, I'm not particularly close to Biden personally, but I'll tell you, I think he has the best domestic record of any president since Lyndon Johnson, the kind of stuff that you had up on the board a little bit earlier.
Look, I was going to ask you another question, but you bring up Bobby Kennedy. Does he have the potential to be a spoiler here, Howard?
Yes. Yes, he does. I don't think he's going to get anywhere as close to 10 or 14%, which he's polling at some places. And I do think he's going to take votes away from Trump, too. The only problem is he may take, there are a few conspiracy theorists that are non-discriminatory conspiracy theorists, and they might vote for him. I don't think those people are ever going to vote for Joe Biden. The question is, would they vote for Trump? And maybe he'll peel some people off Trump. And I think when people get to know more about Bobby Kennedy, that unfortunately for the Kennedy family, which I have a lot of respect and sympathy for, the name of the Kennedy family will be dragged through the mud by the time he gets done with his campaign.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you both so much for coming on. It's good to see you both, good friends to this show.